In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about lead qualification. And I think a lot of salespeople waste a lot of time making themselves the filter, particularly scheduling meetings with folks that are certainly not qualified or have already made a limiting decision, or just have constraints that don't make you the best fit. So I want to take you through sort of the ways to think through lead qualification, a whole bunch of different techniques that can be used in this process. And then I'm going to show you how to leverage those techniques, one, to get back a lot of your time, but more importantly, to increase the monetization of the whole pipeline. So there's a couple different factors that will increase that monetization. One, you spending time on the deals that will actually convert and close. And then the second part, which a lot of people don't think about or kind of let fall on the floor, is those folks that are coming into your funnel that aren't qualified. They generally have money and they are looking for a solution and they have real needs, but for whatever reason, their budget constraint, maybe it's just limiting beliefs, but oftentimes you can monetize that in a really effective, productive way, and it diversifies, again, some of your revenue streams and can really pick up a lot of extra ROI inside of that pipeline, again, depending on how you're generating those leads. So let's dig into it. Here is just kind of basically a brainstorm set of ways to go about lead qualifying. And these are super useful to give yourself a framework and a structure to start to think about, like, how am I going to filter through my leads, ideally in a more automated or behavior generated way. These can give you a lot of different ways to think about it, and I'll talk about a couple of these. If you want a copy of this material, along with a bunch of other useful stuff and training, are inside of our Sales Team of One community, and it's a free community. There's lots of smart people in there exchanging ideas and collaborating. Great way to really take your individual performance up to the next level. So I encourage you to look in the description and grab that link and become a part of that community and everything that's going on in there. But anyway, sometimes it's helpful to have kind of a link to these cheat sheets. It's in Notion, so you can kind of make a copy and put it inside of your Notion and use it as a little bit of a guide. All right, so let's get back to this particular topic. So again, a bunch of different ideas on how to create some qualifications. For me personally, I like to sort of start with the simplest first. And so I'm looking, if I'm generating inbound leads, which is a lot of what I do personally, generate those inbound leads, I like to take some of those initial questions in the lead form, and I often use what I call a progressive or a survey style lead form. I'll take some of those questions, like resources, budget, revenue, and I will use that as a filtering criteria. So right up front, as I'm collecting the lead, I'm making decisions on qualification. You can do other things like industry, maybe the services that they're choosing, if you've got multiple services to offer. Maybe if you have different tiers of product, that tier of product can be also a filtering criteria. So ideally, you want to start that filtering process all the way at the beginning of the lead capture. You can do that sort of manually if you're list building, so you're doing more of a B2B SaaS style. You're going out there and acquiring lists. You're essentially putting some filters on that as you're pulling those people into the list. As you're doing that, I think, again, you want to start simple. You want to go after kind of the core group first, but consider potentially broadening that a bit and offering some different approaches to, especially if you're a founder or an early startup sort of B2B thing. It's good to go a little bit broader, and even if it's not your perfect ICP, to kind of bring in some people around the edges, but intentionally think about what they might need or what limitations, and sort of reshape your process there, again, to test those edges, because you might find out, like, everybody wants the biggest companies, the biggest revenue, and that sort of thing, but you might find you do really well with the middle market. So again, as you're doing some of that filtering and list building, think about that. And then as you start to kind of go through that process, again, there's other places where you can get some feedback that will allow you to begin to segment and to qualify these leads. It can be sending out emails and, hey, there's a segment that opened those but did not click, and then there's a segment that opened them but did click. Can you treat those differently? There are people that have come to your website and registered for a webinar, but again, what do you do with them next? So all these little pockets, and then you can get more and more advanced. And this is really important as you start to build out teams, is starting using things like lead scoring, some automation in your segmentation. AI isn't just a no-brainer anymore. It's becoming more and more accessible. And then again, once you get into the actual customer relationship, which we don't talk about a lot here, but there's, once they've become a customer, then some of their behaviors can also help you to continue to monetize that. So again, these are a whole bunch of different ways just to think about places in your process where you potentially are not considering a filtering point. So kind of the better you are at considering all those little points of filtration, and then trying to figure out, like, how can I actually help those people get to where they want to be, right? Because they're in the funnel, they've gotten there for a reason, they have a true need. Is it something that makes sense for, or that I can help them with, and then of course monetize. Okay, so again, when we're building systems, any kind of system, I'm always looking for the way in which either behavior or the people that are working through the pipeline can kind of self-identify or self-select. So that's important. So let's look at a couple different self-selection techniques, right? We can use the sales funnel itself. I talked about that. As they kind of move through, you can ask them some questions that will start to sort of identify where they are in their sales process or your sales funnel, and then you can start to split them off and give them sort of different experiences. I always call it the choose your own adventure. I think that's one of the most productive and sort of the easiest. One thing that I would caution against here, I was kind of coaching somebody inside of our community the other day, and they had kind of mapped out this really intricate set of filtering and qualifying and upsells and downsells and all this stuff. Again, when you're first beginning this, simplicity is best, right? Bring them all through. Maybe try to get them all on scheduling a call, or all downloading, a particular thing. And then from there, as you ask questions, as you have those meetings, as you maybe survey some of the people that have downloaded something, or even call them up and have a conversation with them, you're going to start to hear some commonality, some patterns. And then from there, start to build out that optionality and those filters, right? So again, this is all good for overall context, but when you're first building your first lead qualification mechanism, make it sort of one size fits all, and then as you have discussions or you watch that behavior, then you can start to build out those alternative paths. Content strategy is great for segmentation. This can happen all the way before they even get to your web form or get into your sales funnel. So again, build a whole bunch of different types of YouTube videos, and that will, again, naturally self-select, right? They'll choose or they'll watch certain ones that are more appropriate to them. Try ones that show them a done-for-you service. Try ones that show kind of how you can do it yourself. And then again, let them sort of self-filter through content. Again, you can do the same thing with articles, emails, and all kinds of different forms of content. Again, educating, and then giving them options to choose sort of that next level. And then again, they're self-qualifying. Nurture sequences. So once they are in segments, once you have them on an email list, again, you can start to segment based on their behavior, whether they open and they don't click. Again, you can introduce surveys, polls, and those sorts of things inside of those nurturing solutions. And then ultimately want to offer solutions based on those particular segmentations. So this is all about sort of monetizing each element of that qualification process. So as people fall into different segmentations, you don't want to just drop them on the floor. You want to try to, if you can, if it makes sense for your business, to serve those needs in those other categories. And then of course, watch it. Things change all the time, right? And those communities of people in those segments change all the time. So constantly be trying to reach out or having conversations with them so that you can, again, increase your understanding of how to monetize, all levels of that segmentation and qualification. So let's jump over and let's try to kind of get a little better picture of this. So this is just a really simple way to do this, right? Again, this is one example. So this is an example of new lead comes in, form fill. I'm asking them some questions, survey style is always the best way in my opinion. And then from there, I get some intel that helps me to kind of move them to the right path. So in this particular form, oftentimes we're asking them budget or revenue. And then another one that I like to filter on, again, you can, for simplicity, you can just do one at a time. Or if you want to get more complex, you can kind of stack these up and do a score or some other more complex thing. But the second piece is industry or problem, right? So for an agency business, are they just interested in SEO, or are they interested in all of lead generation? Are they just interested in Facebook? So again, understanding that, are they mortgage or are they insurance? So again, this helps me to make sure that my next step is completely relevant and somewhat personalized, right? So as they ask this, or as they answer this question, again, simplicity is best, and that's what I've done here. You could, again, start to modify that survey style so that you kind of, again, choose your own adventure. But the simplest, I think, at first is just to get them to answer the questions and then have alternative paths once they get to kind of that final step of what you're asking them to do. Or even after they've completed the form, you again send them a different response. So probably the simplest of this would be to build out, just so you get a good clear picture of this, build out a survey style form. They fill it out, they hit submit, they get a thank you, and then you're going to send them an initial email that says, hey, these are our next steps. If, for instance, they enter a budget and a revenue that's within your ICP, then that email would say, hey, our next step is to schedule a discovery meeting or a demo, and we're going to run through. I'm a big fan of always giving them the agenda so that they feel like prepared and they understand that what we're going to do is valuable and is going to be significant. I like to put a little agenda in there as well. Hey, let's go ahead and schedule this, put your calendar link in there. They'll go ahead and schedule it, and boom, you've got a meeting on the books. If they hit something below what you would normally consider an ICP, we're not going to completely discount them yet, right? But we're going to grab back some of your time. We're not going to put them automatically to a meeting because you know, based on your experience in running your sales process, that people under a certain sort of budget and revenue probably are not going to be a good fit, or they're not going to be able to afford your primary solution. So let's take a second and filter them with content. So again, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to send them an email, but the first thing that we're going to do in that email is we're going to provide them a choice for the done-for-you solution. So here, I like to start to, and most people don't like to do this, but for me, when I'm thinking of myself as a sales team of one and trying to produce millions of dollars worth of new revenue, so essentially producing like a team, I have to take some risk here, right? So I have to put some things out there that, again, help me to filter that population. And then where I get my pickup is super efficient on lead generation, so that leads are not scarce for me, right? And so ultimately, there's other videos that'll teach you how to do that, but that's where you want to get to so that you can take these optimization sort of risk here. So in this process, I'm typically foreshadowing pricing so that they can kind of understand, hey, is this something that I can afford to have done for me? And do I have a preference for that inside of this email? Give them a choice to do that and kind of show them, hey, this is kind of what this looks like. Maybe even give them some again, filtering content, some content that shows them, hey, this is what this process looks like. This is what you need to do if you want to solve this problem. And there are kind of two options. One option is that we can do it for you. Another option is you can go down and you can kind of use this material, again, conveying and giving value. You can see all of the things that are necessary to be done, and maybe you want to not make a decision, or you want to take that material and potentially discover and sort of try doing it yourself first. Then they can take those two paths. So one, they can just take the content, go away, and again, they don't muck up your schedule. Or if they say, hey, well, that's a lot of stuff, I don't really understand how to do all those things. I think I could stretch my budget a little bit and make that happen. If they could really do all those things and do it well for me, then hey, I think I want to have that meeting and see if I'm willing to sort of push my budget a little bit, or I'm just willing to, I now see the value, and so I kind of have a different expectation as to what I should pay for that. Boom, they have the opportunity to schedule that meeting. You can do the same thing with industry, right? So if somebody comes in here and says, hey, I just want SEO, then you push them into a meeting where we're going to talk about SEO. If all I do is lead generation programs, meaning that, hey, if you want to work with me, you've got to have the budget and the funding and sort of the mindset of doing SEO, PPC, and email, then maybe those are the only people that choose that like turnkey lead generation. Maybe those are the only people I schedule a meeting. And then filtering content, again, I push them through there. I give them some content that shows, hey, you could do this SEO, but maybe if you have an urgency for leads right now, maybe buy some leads from us, or maybe you actually start with PPC and then add on SEO. And again, they have a choice, right? They can take this information, they can do nothing, or they can try to do it themselves, or they can, hey, okay, you've enlightened me a little bit. I understand the value proposition here, and I think this is something that I need to do, so I'm going to go ahead and schedule that meeting. So here's a really easy way to, again, use lead qualification and build a system that gives you back your time, gives you the best high quality leads, and lets those other folks that are probably not qualified for your primary service either go down a different path where you can either have them kind of try and get frustrated and come back, which a lot of them do. Or one thing we didn't really talk about is you could potentially monetize this. You can say, hey, this is something where I can do it with you. And there's a certain price. Maybe there's a course or a program that I can put you through, or it's DIY, but to give you the details, maybe I charge you for that package. So you can also monetize this with some lower ticket solutions or products, right? So hopefully this has helped. Again, lead qualification is hugely important if you want to get to that kind of ultimate sales team of one concept where you're producing millions in new revenue, much like a team. Encourage you to look in the description. If you want a copy of everything that I've shared here, you can grab that by joining our free community, Sales Team of One. It's in school. There's all kinds of folks in there working and helping each other inside of the forum. We do regular office hours where we get on and do some live calls and Q&As, as well as there's ongoing training in there that will help you maximize your sales performance. So hope you join me there.